Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Ruth Mitchell. I'm editor of the Wholesaler magazine. We'll get started with our series on generational leadership in just one moment. But first, I would like to say thank you so very much to our sponsor of today's event, Liberty Pumps. Liberty Pumps is headquartered in Bergen, New York, and is family and employee-owned leading U.S. manufacturer of pumping products for groundwater and wastewater removal in residential and commercial applications. With a focus on innovative product design, its wide range of pump styles includes sump pumps, sewage pumps, effluent pumps, drain pumps, grinder pumps, complete pre-assembled sewage packages, and pump accessories. Utilizing a vast network of plumbing wholesalers and pump distributors, Liberty's products are relied upon by hundreds of professional contractors each day. And with that being said, welcome everyone and good morning. My name is Ruth Mitchell. I'm the editor of the Wholesaler magazine, and I'm really excited that you're joining us today on our series on generational leadership. It was important to us as we look forward to celebrating the Wholesaling 100 listing that appears in the July issue of the magazine, that we take a look around us at the next generation that's at the helm. What are their challenges? What are their obstacles? What are their successes? And how are they changing the roadmap for their family-owned and operated companies? Which leads us to our guest today. I'm so excited to have with me today Katie Poehling-Seymour, who's president of First Supply Company, a company with a rich history of service to the building community. Originally incorporated in 1897 as a family-owned supplier of pumps and windmills, the company has evolved into a single-source supplier that Midwestern contractors rely on for plumbing, HVAC, municipal waterworks, well and septic, PVF, and industrial supplies. Now, First Supply has its stamp across the upper Midwest with 28 distribution locations, 15 Gerhardt kitchen and bath stores, 4 Kohler signature stores by First Supply, along with 1 central distribution center that's located in La Crosse, Wisconsin. You add in a support staff of 650 plus team members and an inventory of more than $60 million. The company is well seasoned in meeting the needs of its customers. Now, overseeing the continuation of growth and health of the family-owned company is Katie Poehling-Seymour, the next generation at the helm. I've known this individual for such a long time, and I'm so excited to be sitting here and having a conversation with her. Katie, I can't wait to hear your vision and direction. So let's just get started. Welcome.
Thanks. Hi, Ruth. It's exciting to be here, and congratulations on the anniversary for the magazine too.
Well, thank you so very much. We appreciate that. You know, Katie, we couldn't be here without companies such as yours. I mean, so ingrained in the distribution channel here. And, you know, there's so much that I want to ask you, so much that I know, but so much I'd like you to expound upon. So I'm just going to jump right in. Now, a family-owned, family-operated company. I know you worked outside of the industry for about 9 years, but you grew up in the family business. Now, during your first 9 years at First Supply, you went through the ranks. You started in sales, and then you were promoted to COO to the kitchen and bath stores. And then in late 2020, you were promoted to the role of president of First Supply. Tell me, growing up, did you imagine your path leading to where you are today?
Yes and no. So a couple of things as I think about that. First of all, when I was young, and I didn't even know it at the time, but women in our family didn't work in our business yet. That was a new concept starting with my aunt a number of years ago. So I'm not the first generation of women to work in the business, but it wasn't really a thing. Secondly, you know, our family's old Germans, and it's important that we work hard to achieve any element that we have. So none of these roles have ever been a given. None of these roles have ever been something that I think, well, I'm just going to get that next, or I'm just going to do that next. It's important to me, and it's really how our business operates, that I've learned everything I could in each role, and I've moved to the next one as it's become appropriate and as I've earned it. But honestly, as I think back about, I'm so lucky to have had the leadership for generations in my family that I did, and seeing my uncles like Ed Felton and my father Joe in these roles previously is such an aspiration to have. You look at these people who are leaders of our business, and they're phenomenal team members to everyone, and they're leaders of our industry. So it's certainly something that I've aspired to, and it's a place that is I'm very happy to be.
Well, your family definitely has, for generations, the give back. You dig in, do hard work, and you give back. And I can definitely tell that's been ingrained in the next generation with you and the rest of the family members. Katie, I want to take one step back. Can you tell me what's the company's mission and core value?
Yeah. So when we think about our business, we actually a number of years ago started thinking about our distribution business and our kitchen and bath business really as entities that have disparate customers, although there's a ton of overlap. So we have two statements that setting that up. So, and I had to write them down to make sure that I got it right. So I'm going to read for a minute, but the mission of First Supply is to provide our customers with quality products and services in a timely, accurate, cost-effective manner, while generating a fair return to our shareholders. So really, it's about serving our customers with products and service. In our kitchen and bath stores, our mission is to delight our customers with a project and product experience that exceeds their expectations by providing professional service, inspirational design, and the latest, most innovative products. So honestly, again, it's about serving our customers with the right products at the right time. We just say it a little bit differently to really address those different customers. And when I think about our guiding principles, those are really ingrained in our business: people, performance, relationships. And those are the core of what we do, and our people really being that foundation in what we do. The other thing that we did a number of years ago, Joe and Todd and I, who are current family members in the business, sat down and thought through our strategic plan for the next 5 years. So we did this a number of years ago. And we thought about what our family's mission is and what our family's guiding principles are and how that overlays with the business. Who do we want to show up as? And we made a couple of statements that I just love. So I wrote those down too. We talk about we value stewardship as the careful and responsible management of the important things that are entrusted to our care, which is our legacy, our employees' well-being, our customers' confidence, our suppliers' interests, our community's prosperity. And those were really powerful statements to me, the way we labored over those words, because they were important to us. And I think that sums up so much when we think about generational evolution. And, we start with our really important statements that we've held for a long time. And then we talk about, or we see a bit of the evolution as we think about our next strategic plan that we started a number of years ago.
Well, first of all, those are all beautiful statements. And when you were just talking about the strategic plan, when you sat down with Todd and your dad as well, really at that point in time, it kind of leads into how I wanted to ask you how you've put your stamp on the company. It's really talking about going into the company's foundation and the company culture. And now you're putting your own spin on it of what's important at this point in time that can enhance what your company stands for. So since you've made that direction 5 years ago, tell me what your vision and mission is and how it aligns with that statement that you just said.
So it's interesting because I think as I was thinking about our conversation today, I was thinking about how much the last year has impacted all those things, right? We've kind of had to think about things in a different way than we ever did before. Mm-hmm. And in some ways I've talked about this with some other people in our industry, but it was such an amazing education. This pandemic and all this craziness happened for me at a perfect time in my career, I feel, at a perfect time in my life, because it made me think about some of these things. What is my personal vision statement? What is my personal mission? And how do I show up at work because of that? So if I think about that, two things that are so important to me are really genuine authenticity and really purposeful presence. And I say that as someone who's taking on a new leadership role in our business, somebody who's a young mom, as somebody who's a young person, just all of these things need to come together. And those are the two things that I really value. And when I think about what does that mean, it means just showing up, right? I mean, it means when you're in an interview with Ruth and you come prepared and this is the most important thing happening at the moment. It means if I'm in a meeting with my team, that's the most important thing at that time. It's not multitasking. It's not doing all these different things. And really showing up for people and being present is so important as we've been pulled in all these different directions all year. So I think, and in the pandemic, we learned so much about each other as we're all working from home and we've got kids in the background and we've got dogs barking and we've got all these things happening in our lives. Right. Maybe we have a coworker that say, I didn't know you had a dog, tell me about your dog. And all of a sudden we've learned about each other, but it just that the concept of bringing our whole selves to work is a little new agey maybe for our industry, but so true, so real. And the pandemic has really unfolded all of that, whether we wanted it to or not. So important.
I don't think it's being edgy in any way. I actually think that it's an extension of how your companies and your team members interact with your customers. It's all about being focused, staying on, listening to what the customer needs. And you're doing that for what your employees and your team need. So it's kind of like the reverse order. So I don't think it's new edgy at all. I think it's just a way of highlighting how important it is to stop, be present, and listen.
Exactly. It's life these days. It's what we do. And the other piece of that I was thinking about the mission statement. What is my personal mission statement? And my siblings hear this, they would laugh, but the thing that continues to come back to me and resonate is positive affirmation statements. And this is something that it's been a mantra in my family for as long as I can remember. Joe will giggle when he hears this because this is something that we've been talking about forever. And it's made us glass half full people. It's how I grew up, is this positive affirmation statement. And it's not to say that nothing ever goes wrong, but when something goes wrong, when you think about how can I inject a positive affirmation in this, it really leads you to the solution. And how can you fix things? How can you ultimately make it right? And if nothing's wrong, if you're thinking about positive affirmation statements, and if that's what's going through your mind, then you're starting off on a path to success to begin with.
I love that. And it is true. It's all in the way that you look at things. And I've always said there's a silver lining to every cloud, and there's truly nothing that can't be fixed one way or the other. Mm-hmm. Which actually, that's a good point. I want to talk about employee growth and employee empowerment. This conversation leads directly into that. When you became president of the company, what was your first goal for innovation, for employee growth and empowerment? And how long did it take to see that through? And I realized that you just stepped into your position in late 2020, but obviously, you're an individual that's so well seasoned within providing steps for individuals to grow within the company. What did you want to implement and how are you doing that?
As you were talking, I'm thinking, geez, Ruth, am I supposed to be done already? It's only been 8 months.
No, Katie, sorry. This is just, hey, Katie, like I said, there's nothing that can't be fixed. Let me go back and say, you're doing a great job.
No, really. When I think about, how we, under Joe's leadership, we had a really, really great succession plan. And that was really important to him. It's been important we're 124 years in. We're not going to get to another 124 years if we don't have a plan, right? So he really led us through an excellent succession planning process. And that's in all levels of the organization. It wasn't just about leadership. So when I took the role as president, that sort of started the deck of cards around succession planning falling. but and started moving more people into new roles and more promotions. And it started to gel a different leadership team. So it really brought up the succession of our entire company, which is really exciting. So one of the things that I think has been important, Todd and I both felt strongly that we needed to empower that new leadership team to do the things that they needed to do to form their teams and get their pieces in place to ultimately deliver on our objectives and our long-term strategic goals. And really a lot of that was just in time, right? As you think about the boom that our industry is facing today, we were able to put those teams in place and really make sure that it ultimately made us very well positioned for the ability to capitalize on what's going on in our industry this year, which has been phenomenal. But we couldn't have done that without those teams and that leadership and our entire leadership team really coming together and stepping up and making it happen, really.
Well, talk about filling the bullpen and everything in order, right ahead of the curve here when that had taken place. Katie, it sounds like you're obviously following a roadmap for the company. Core value, mission, principles, what your expertise on what you deliver on. But how have you changed the company roadmap, or how do you see changing the company roadmap? And what influences your decision making?
Yeah, I don't know if I've changed the roadmap, but the world has changed the roadmap, right? I mean, the things that we deal with every day between supply chain and our customers needing just-in-time product and just everything that's happening in the world makes our roadmap. We've got a little different roadmap every day, right? But as I think about where we've come from, where we are, and where we're going, the roadmap. Truly, and our teams have heard us talk about this for a long time, but our goal is to be the number one independent distributor in each of the markets we serve for each of our vendor partners, for each of our customers. Mm-hmm. And that hasn't changed. That's where we started 124 years ago. That's what we aspire to today. And that's what we'll continue to do in the future. What that looks like, I think, is going to have some twists and turns as we think about new team members and new innovations and our facilities. What do our facilities look like? How are we incorporating efficient energy vehicles in a gas crisis when we've got a pipeline down and things like that? All these things are going to look and feel a little bit differently, but ultimately the roadmap is really to be that leader in each of our markets, for each of our vendors, to each of our customers.
One thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking about changing the company roadmap is I know that I had an interview with two individuals from your company on the e-commerce initiative. Mm-hmm. Was just completed a little while ago. Did that start under your direction? Would that be a good example of how maybe you've changed the company roadmap is diving deeper into e-commerce?
I think probably pushing it, but we had started we've had e-commerce in place for a long time. It just looked different. We for a long time had e-commerce that was to the trade only. It was more like a catalog online. A lot of distributors had something like that. Now, when we think about e-commerce, it's really different. One of the things that we're really looking forward to is continuing to innovate on the consumer side of e-commerce, because we know that that's a place where our industry sometimes doesn't have a voice or is missing out, perhaps, because the big boxes have that opportunity when a consumer is looking for a product. We can deliver those products too. We tend to do it differently, and our trade relationships are always going to be so important to us. But that consumer side of the business is one that I think we need to pay attention to. And that's where you'll see our e-commerce and probably my leadership push that pretty hard.
I've got to imagine that the legacy of the company, you carry that on your shoulders every day. How does the legacy of the company enhance or deter your ability to lead innovation?
This is a very good question. And I heard something last week. It's a bit of a cliche in family businesses, but I think it guides how I think about innovation and legacy. But it talks about, we have not inherited this family business from our parents. We're borrowing it from our children. And isn't it awesome? And I've heard it before, and it's just, I probably having 3-month-old babies, it struck a chord with me right now, especially. But I think about, we owe it to them to be innovative. We owe it to them not to sit back in many ways, just the same way that we owe it to the families of all of our team members. When I get up every day, I think about not what I'm going to do today, but I think about 650 families that rely on me to do it right. and that's important. It is a big thing, but it's also a really exciting thing to me. I really enjoy that aspect of it. But when I think about that legacy tying in with innovation, I'm really lucky in that innovation has been something we have done since day one. You talk about the metal windmills that we were involved in, and that was an innovative thing at the time. Mm-hmm. I think about in one generation, we brought kitchen cabinetry into our plumbing showroom. And we believe that became the first kitchen and bath showroom to have both elements together. In another generation, we changed how we offloaded pipe from the barges on the river. And it made it so much faster and more efficient. It became this huge competitive advantage we have because we changed how we did it. It was an innovation. And I think about Joe's partnership with our vendors to have the first distributor owned single branded kitchen and bath store in the country. And we just continue to innovate. So innovation doesn't scare us. Innovation isn't something that our family or our business or our teams is new to. We've really, when I think about the people at First Supply, they are excited by innovation. We are all yearning for it. And so we want to all see it keep going, which is a great place to be.
I love that you're not scared of innovation. Innovation and change, which obviously, and I do love the story about how your company started out selling windmills. I mean, how you go from windmills to where we are today. And even being up at First Supply many years ago, I remember walking in and seeing the, 90-year-old bathtubs and different products. And you're right, we wouldn't be where we are today without innovation and companies such as yours that embrace it. And especially the partnerships within the supply chain too are so very important. Another very important thing is, and you talked about it a little bit, is company culture. I mean, your company is 100+ years old for a reason. Not only is it because of the products that you sell and the services, but the team members that you have behind it that deliver on your expectations. Can you talk to me about the company culture at First Supply?
Yes. Our culture is deeply rooted in our teamwork. I've talked a little bit about our teams, but what we do takes a village. No one person can make 124 years of business happen across 48 locations in the number of areas we serve. It's really about all of the parts pulling together. It's interesting. I recently reached out to a couple of our team members and just congratulated them on a job well done. There was a couple of things that people did, and I thought, we went above and beyond. I'd love to thank them for that. And I was struck by how much I heard back from people when they get a compliment. They are quick to compliment their team. Immediately, it's, I couldn't have done this without my team. My team is the most important part. And that was just phenomenal to me. I was so incredibly proud to hear that this is who we are when we think about who our business is and how we want to show up every day and what's happening inside of each of the four walls that we operate in. It's teams pulling together, working together to serve our customers and to service our vendors to those customers. And maybe it's part of the heart of distribution, right? We're part of the all the pieces that come together. We're not manufacturing. We're not ultimately installing. We are part of the chain that is so important to it. But we need teams on both ends to really make that work. And So when I think about our company culture and I think about the important pieces that I would love to preserve and I think we need to take into our next generation, it's the teamwork and it's the ability of our teams to be able to come together to do it right.
Well, when you started this conversation, you had said, you wake up every day and you think about the 650 families that, are within the team membership there at First Supply Company. And I've got to imagine that you have employees there that are probably multi-generational as well. I've got to imagine, in 20 plus years and 30 plus years, and they're there for a reason. And they're there because exactly what you said, when someone at the end of the day receives a compliment and they say, I couldn't do it alone. It's our team. So thank you. I'll tell them the same. That speaks volumes.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool. I just found out in our management leadership program, and our management development program. So developing the next leaders, we have the son of one of our GMs. And I'm so excited about that because
it's fantastic.
Developing, and that's just one example. You're exactly right. We have scores of multi-generational people, but that was I think that's a really cool thing to have as part of our management development program too.
Well, none of this would happen, or I should say this is happening for a reason, and it's all because it's taken from the direction of leadership and those in leadership. So, Katie, describe to me your leadership style and how that might be different from, say, your father's from the generation before you.
One of the things, again, I think about the pandemic and the pandemic really requiring all of us to define these things, right? Who are we as leaders? And what does that mean? And for me personally, I also had a life change. I had twins in February. And so there are all these things coming together. And I talked before about our whole person showing up at work. And I think my leadership style really leans on that and leans into that. I think my leadership style is very different than Joe's for a number of reasons, and different than Todd, my cousin as well, who's with me in the business. That I'm our first female president, and that brings with it its own set of leadership characteristics. I'm a young mom, that brings with it its own set of leadership characteristics. The education, I'm a tax attorney, that brings its own leadership characteristics, right? All these things that come together. And I think that a lot of them come together in this moment in time of the pandemic. I'm sorry, something just opened on my desktop.
It's called life.
There we go. Exactly. So
it's okay. I can hear folks in the background. It's in my office here. It's called life.
Exactly. And this is the part about the dogs barking and the babies crying and all that stuff. And all of that's so important to, again, how we show up and bringing our whole self. There's nothing, there's the formality behind leadership. It's important. We need to maintain some of it for a reason and bring all those things forward. But at the same time, we're people working together to get a job done and coming together, and the communication behind coming together. We've changed how we communicate so much in the last 18 months. We think about how much we changed in the last 18 years with email and cell phones and all the things. And then we think about the last 18 months, and that's changed even more dramatically. So how we communicate today is so different, but what we communicate is just as important. And I think that when we think about relying on the teamwork that we've got in our business, communication is the crux of that. Everybody needs to know what's going on. For goodness sake, last time at this year was a matter of our health, that we all knew what was going on and how we were addressing it and what that meant. But we've been able to run with that. We just kept it up. Some of the things that we learned and we've done throughout the pandemic with more conference calls, more leadership calls, more email communications throughout the organization, all those little things have built a communication system that has really served us well and that will continue. And so when I think about my own style working amongst our teams, it's really about communication and openness and being who we are, that authenticity being so important. because we're all here for a reason. We all bring that important element to the team. So if we're holding back, then we're not necessarily contributing everything that we have forward to the team.
Yeah. To bounce off that idea, when you're talking about teams, you are very active within your buying group, AD, as well as with American Supply Association. You're, and it's very much ingrained in you too. And it's just the nature of who you are and who the family is of always giving back, helping out, giving back and leading others along the way. Can you talk to me about empowering employees within your company and how you help them propel forward on their career path?
Yeah, I kind of go back to our succession planning in terms of when we think about, okay, this is important to the longevity of our business to have a succession plan. But the flip side of that is that it empowers our teams to say, hey, I want to sit in that seat. I want to be over there. I want to do something different. How do I get there? Mm-hmm. And opens up those lines of communication to say, well, maybe I need to take a class at the local community college to get different skills, or maybe I need to partner with Liberty Pump to learn more about this area of the business because I want to take a sales role in that area, or I want to move into customer service there. All of those things that our succession plan empowers us to see the future, but also to build it as well. I think that's the most important thing that we can do for our teams too, is have that ability to raise our hand and say, this is where I want to be. And we see it happen all the time.
And quite frankly, that's opportunity. That's opportunity, and they can see growth within the company. Katie, as a leader, again, you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders there, of the company too. What do you do? What are the things that you do in your personal time that helps you be a more effective leader within your company?
Right now, it's take care of babies. But no, really, I think about, I've talked a ton about that whole self, that whole personal self. But if I'm worried about who's taking care of my kids, if my older daughter turned 2 on Friday, so I can no longer say I have 3 under 2, but I've got 3, 2 and under. But that's changed my life so much and so dramatically. If I'm worried about that, I can't be the leader I need to be in the office. And if I'm worried about what's in the office, I can't be the mom to them at home. So when I think about what I do outside the office, we walk a lot. Activity is so important to me. I play a lot of tennis, which seems crazy as a mom of 3 young kids. How do I? But I have a great support system that allows me to do that, and that is a place that's kind of my time every week that I can spend with my girlfriends at women's tennis night, and I can blow off some steam, and I'm out and about, and that's a place that I love. But also with more of my family too. I have 2 sisters and a brother, and we live all over the country. But if pre-pandemic, I feel like I spent so much time traveling to meet with them and traveling to get together that we've missed out on that so much. And we're really excited to get back together and to be able to spend time together and bring our kids together. And that's exciting for me. That's energizing for me. And really helps see, all of them bringing their expertise too. It's really fun sometimes to talk about work. We're in very different areas of work, but just, hey, how's your company doing that? Or what did your company do about that? Did you like it? Did you not like it? That ideas sharing builds, just our relationships personally, but it also serves us well when we take those things back.
Well, you hit the nail on the head perfectly when you said earlier, you need to find that work-life balance, and you're right. There's so many individuals like you that are raising a family and running a company and taking care of extended family and doing so many other different things that sometimes you just need to stop and realize, take care of self first. And when you do that, you're able to take care of everything else.
Yeah.
I love asking this question because it can either be a very good quote or a bad quote, but no matter what, it's something that's whispered in your ear. What's the best piece of advice or the one-liner that your father has instilled in you that it's, it kind of plays the cornerstone to what you do?
Oh, that's such a hard question. I feel like there's so many things. And I'm not sure that it's something whispered in my ear or even a saying, but it's something that I observed from him over many, many years. And he's masterful at asking questions of people in a few ways. He genuinely shows care and concern for someone. He is a person that you sit down with him and you are the most important person in the world, and how that makes people feel is incredible. And I truly aspire to that. And so he asks questions that make people feel good, but he also asks questions to learn. He can walk away from a conversation at my nephew's soccer game. He's like, you know what I found out? This is fascinating. What the heck? So he's just has this curious mind that he's constantly asking questions about things. And I find myself relying on that too. I can't know everything. I don't know everything. Even as a mom, I'm like, the baby's crying. Oh my gosh, what do I do? Ask a question, ask somebody who might know, ask somebody who, I luckily have friends that have kids a little bit older. What did they do? Google it, so whatever it may be. But if we have that innate curiosity to keep asking questions, it serves us so well. Somebody screwed up an order or something, and maybe if we ask a couple questions and find out what really happened, maybe there's a process that we need to fix, or maybe there's a deeper reason why that happened, or maybe there's a learning we can take from that to move forward. But that ask another question is so important.
Well, Katie, that's a beautiful statement. At first, I was going to reel off one of my 10 Ed Felton-isms, which Ed is always very well known for. And for the folks out there who aren't familiar with the name, he was a phenomenal gentleman who worked for Supply and was in leadership and a family member as well, and very dear to this industry. But I think that you carry on the tradition of your father and your family quite well when you sit and have a conversation and you make people feel better about themselves when the conversation parts, that it was actually a true conversation. It was a give and take. So that's a beautiful art form that you've mastered.
Oh, thank you.
No, thank you. I'm going to end by asking you just, in the past year, the last year was crazy. Obviously, you're a mom to twins as well as to, a little one that's 2 years old. You became president in 2020. COVID happened in 2020, supply chain issues, all of that crazy stuff. Outside of that, what's the smallest change that you have implemented or done that you think that's had a big impact over the last year?
That one, it just sets my mind racing, because I think there's all these tiny little things that we've done that have changed so much of how we do things, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, whatever it is. It's all these tiny little things. But I talked about the communication that we've really, again, leaned into in our company. And I think one of the smallest things is I was heading up our task force, right? About a year ago, or more than a year ago now, when all of this started, we put together a task force and I was heading it up before I was president. And we started sending an email, and I would write an email first every day, then a couple of days a week, and now once a week. And that one email, I think, has changed how we communicate as a company. And it's changed how I've been able to communicate with some of our teams. I get emails back from people that I didn't know as well before the pandemic, but now I've heard from them and we learned more about each other. So sending one email a week, one email a day has really, I think, changed how we thought about some things and how we've talked about things in our company. And I hope we continue, but maybe we don't send an email every day anymore. Maybe we don't send an email every week anymore, but that dialogue and openness continues.
Well, that's beautiful. And that's a great way to sum up how you, as the new generation, are leading your company, which hopefully will be into, at the very least, the next 100 years here, and sharing your story of struggles and challenges and roadmap with the industry here. At the end of the day, it's all about making the channel healthy, and you and the company are a perfect example of digging in, lending a hand, and pushing innovation forward. So, Katie, one thing that is very important to mention about your leadership, as well as, your leadership doesn't necessarily start with you becoming president here in 2020. Your leadership and your direction, from my aspect, also started many, many years ago. You are a fundamental force in forming ASA's Women in Leadership program. You along with Ashley Martin, were the spearhead to, bring women's voices to the table of, women are in this industry, and let's provide an opportunity and a format and a forum to help elevate and empower. And along with that, I know that Robin from Liberty Pumps was just awarded the Alice Martin Woman of the Year Award, and Robin's with Liberty. So, Katie, can you tell me about how important was that to you, many years ago, sitting down and saying, this is something that needs to happen. These are voices that need to be heard.
Yeah. So when I think about innovation in our industry, I think that that's got to be part of it, right? The diversity of voices and the diversity in leadership. I think when we think about innovation too, it's people like me and Robin sitting in these seats of leadership that just are different than it had been in the past. I talked earlier about, when I was very young, women in my family weren't in the business yet. That changed quickly, but at that time that just wasn't a thing, right? It wasn't wrong. It just wasn't what it was. Right. And I think that having women in places of leadership and having women serving on all types of teams in our industry have an important place, not because they are women. That's not why we should be here. It's because we're the right person for the role. And so we need to sit in these seats, not because of what we are, but because of who we are. And that's going to continue to be important as well.
So, Katie, thank you so much for joining me here today. Any last words of wisdom that you'd like to impart?
No, thank you, Ruth. It really takes people like you bringing us all together to share these best practices and share how we're doing it. So we're not, what someone told me the other day, we're all in the same storm, just different boats,
It's a good point.
It's true, right? And so thank you for giving us this opportunity to share our story and to bring the other stories together as well.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you, Katie. And thank you very much to Liberty Pumps, who also has a great supplier within the channel here, who have partnered with us to sponsor this webinar. So thank you all. And Katie, I look forward to seeing you sometime in person this year.
Thank you, Ruth.
Take care.